Well, Daredevil Season 2 is kicked off production, and with that, we're starting to get some pretty amazing set pictures. But the set pictures are not the only big story. Are we about to see the return of the Defenders? Well, let's take a couple minutes to check out all these new set pictures, what's going on, and a recent report that indicates teams are forming. Well, I think it's pretty safe to say Marvel probably has a certified hit in the form of Daredevil Born Again. The first 3 episodes were met with pretty widespread critical and fan acclaim, and everybody is anticipating episode 4 tonight. Now, one thing we know from Brad Wonderbaum is Marvel Studios definitely intends on making the future of Marvel shows more annual. I'm not the only one that notices on streaming platforms we tend to have to wait a really long time before we get a season 2 of anything. And it seems like Marvel Studios, specifically Marvel Television, is looking to remedy that with Marvel shows, and Daredevil Season 2 should be coming our way this time next year. Now, we started to get set pictures from the streets in New York, and this really doesn't surprise me. Season 1 saw a lot of set pictures leak, and shooting outdoors basically runs this risk. Now, these pictures are revealing some interesting details so far, some of it fairly predictable and some of it fairly interesting. And where Season 2 leads us, well, that might even be the biggest part of the story, but we're going to talk about the set pictures first. Now, these set pictures we've been getting over the last couple of days have been fairly interesting. We got a look at a Wilson Fisk poster from the streets of New York that kind of advertises him pushing back on vigilantes, which is what we were hearing the show was going to go with. And it sounds like by Season 2, that will be in full effect. Now, to complement that poster, well, we got a first look at the Anti-Vigilante Task Force. Now, they're calling these costumes, but honestly, I don't really see it as a costume, more as a designation and sort of a classic police SWAT outfit. Now, I did notice the outfit does have that Punisher logo, and we do know Frank Castle is going to be pretty unhappy about that, and that will definitely play into bringing him back into the picture. And we'll get to a little more of that in a second. Now, the most interesting set picture, though, we got was Deborah Ann Woll. Now, as many of you know, she returned for the first part of Season 1, but after the death of Foggy Nelson, it appears she is going to be absent for the remainder of this first season. Now, we started getting these pictures of her on the streets in New York, and she is definitely sporting a new look. Now, what's this new look mean? Well, to me, it does suggest she is actually in hiding. And given some rumors about the return of Foggy Nelson, we'll cover that in a different video, well, this sort of incognito version of Karen might kind of give us a clue on where they're going with the character and what she's been up to. Now, other people on the street said they actually saw her and Matt holding hands, so it does suggest there might be a Season 2 reunion. But regardless, her return with a different look does really provide some context to what the character has been up to. Now, all this new Season 2 information definitely gives one the idea that by next year, well, that Anti-Vigilante Task Force is going to be in full effect, and that is going to play huge in the future of this show and the MCU. And this definitely sounds like to me like an adaptation of Devil's Reign. Now, Devil's Reign saw Kingpin become mayor and turn the legitimate forces of law and order against the vigilantes of the city, and that definitely appears to be what's going on. As the Kingpin marshals all these forces against Daredevil and the other crime fighters of the city, well, what are they going to do? And that leads us to our second part of this report. Now, this part of the report comes from Daniel Rickman, and as we always like to say, it's not from Kevin Feige or Marvel Studios, but we do respect Rickman's track record, and this definitely seems to align with what's going on. Now, before we break down what Dan has to say, though, I want to ask everybody to hit that like and subscribe button. We don't really campaign too much for subscribers, but it's something I think we're missing out on. And also, if you could comment and like on the video, that helps it more than you can possibly imagine, and maybe will help finally boost this channel. Now, according to Rickman, Season 2 of Born Again will, and I quote, focus on him recruiting a team to take on Fisk's Anti-Vigilante Task Force. Now, this definitely suggests the return of many of those Defender characters, and that's been something we have been hearing for quite a long time. Kristen Ritter has teased it on multiple occasions, and very recently, Mike Holter made it super clear he's very open to the return as Luke Cage. We've also heard rumor reports that Finn Jones would also be returning to the series, so all of these classic characters line up nicely with what could be going on. And I wouldn't be shocked if the end of this season actually teases their return, or if they're actually in the show just for a split second. Now, as he assembles this team though, there's a lot of other names to consider. We just saw the Hector Alaya version of White Tiger get assassinated in the show, but if you're a fan, you know his niece Ava takes up the role of White Tiger in the comics, and I do think that's going to happen. We also have characters like Echo, who was introduced last year and definitely has a rivalry with Fisk, as well as the likes of Colleen Wing or Misty Knight, who were huge parts of that Netflix show. We also shouldn't forget some other well-established MCU characters. I actually think there's room for the other residents of New York. That would be Kate Bishop and Miss Marvel, who I think is high profile enough will definitely garner the attention of the Anti-Vigilante Task Force. And ultimately, if Marvel and Sony can agree on it, well, the return of Spider-Man for Season 2. If this turns out to be true, it's definitely giving Marvel that platform that they need to not only bring back those Netflix characters that many of us want to see, but it allows Kevin Feige to do exactly what he told us he was going to do several years ago. Have a full-on street-level version of the MCU with Daredevil and Spider-Man potentially leading that squad. Now, obviously, there's other names that could show up here with the likes of She-Hulk and Moon Knight, but I think with such a long laundry list of characters, well, Marvel can pretty much do anything. And if you look to this, it's going to give you some ideas of where they're going in the future. Now, the big question becomes Daredevil Season 3, because if Season 2 is already kicking off production, well, however they wrap this up is going to be big and should lead to something else. They made it super clear they're planning on doing series for multiple seasons, so I do honestly believe whatever happens in Season 2 is going to lead directly into Season 3, and Season 3 of Daredevil could see a much larger footprint of Marvel heroes in New York City, which is something fans want. I don't think all these other heroes return without sticking around either. If Marvel does collect a full group of New York-based heroes, even if they're not part of upcoming seasons of Daredevil, we very well might see their own shows or projects, and to me, the first thing that comes to mind would be a Heroes for Hire featuring Iron Fist and Luke Cage, as well as a full library of supporting characters, giving a great place to have that crew set up and continue their story. Now, obviously, we're waiting on some confirmation on these details, and Marvel is unlikely to give it directly. But as these street pictures continue to leak from New York City, if we're going to see some returning faces from the Netflix era or other Marvel heroes, well, they're going to show up on set. And I have no doubt at all that pictures will get snapped and they will definitely come our way. We're obviously going to keep a really close eye on this story. I'm actually thinking about kicking off a Daredevil podcast and doing sort of a weekly extended Daredevil talk. So I'm curious about what you guys think of that. Let me know in the comments below if that would be something you would be interested in. It'll give us the opportunity to cover all of these stories in depth, maybe bring some guests on, and talk the Devil of Hell's Kitchen a little deeper. I mean, I know you want to know how that Billy stick works, right? So what do you guys think? How excited are you for a Season 2 that could involve Daredevil recruiting a team? And which heroes are an absolute must to be on the roster? Make sure you sound off in the comments below and tell me who you think. Now, before you take off though, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button and ring the bell for all the updates. We do daily videos and we want to be your place for all the Marvel and DC news, but we're going to bring it to you truthfully and transparently so you're really in the know.